The ambient hum of Regulus 7's artificial gravity generators provided a steady backdrop to the cacophony of alien voices in the main assembly hall. Dr. Elena Voss adjusted her translator earpiece, watching as representatives from dozens of species filed into their designated areas. The Galactic Alliance Conference had been years in the making, and humanity's invitation to join was nothing short of miraculous, if you could call being relegated to the status of protected observer miraculous. Elena stood behind the human delegation's modest table, her fingers nervously smoothing the wrinkles in her xenoanthropology notes. At 34, she was one of Earth's youngest xenoanthropologists, but her expertise in interspecies cultural dynamics had earned her a place on this historic mission. The weight of representing humanity's intellectual capacity pressed on her shoulders like a physical force. The year 2284 had brought humanity into contact with a vast galactic community that operated on principles fundamentally alien to human thinking. The Galactic Alliance wasn't a democracy, or even a federation. It was a complex hierarchy based on what species called the hunt paradigm. Every species was classified as either predator or prey, with political rights and representation scaling accordingly. Humanity, despite their technological achievements and intellectual capabilities, had been classified as a prey species. Their lack of natural weapons, their relatively fragile physiology, and their absence of evolved hunting instincts had relegated them to the bottom tier of galactic society. They were protected, yes, but also patronized and dismissed. Dr. Voss, Ambassador Merrick's voice cut through her thoughts. The Rokar delegation has just arrived. Elena looked up to see a group of 7-foot-tall humanoids entering the hall. The Rokar moved with predatory grace, their elongated limbs covered in mottled gray-green skin that seemed to shift and ripple like living camouflage. Their faces were angular, almost geometric, with large, forward-facing eyes that glowed with bioluminescent intensity. Each wore intricately carved bone armor that clicked softly as they walked. What made the Rokar particularly notorious wasn't just their status as apex predators in the galactic hierarchy. It was their practice of diplomatic hunting. Unlike other species who had abandoned hunting for sustenance, the Rokar maintained it as a cultural cornerstone, often selecting representatives from lesser species for elaborate hunts that served both as entertainment and political demonstration. They've requested a private meeting with our delegation. Ambassador Merrick continued, his voice betraying none of the nervousness Elena could see in his eyes. General Cross specifically asked for our xenoanthropologist to be present. Elena nodded, gathering her digital tablets and following the ambassador toward the conference's smaller meeting chambers. As they walked, she reviewed what she knew about Rokar culture. Their society was structured around hunting clans, each led by legendary hunters whose prowess determined their political influence. The concept of worthy prey was central to their worldview, creatures that provided not just sustenance, but challenge, intelligence, and honor in the taking. The meeting chamber was dimly lit, accommodating the Rokar's preference for twilight conditions. General Kra, identifiable by the intricate bone crown adorning her skull, rose as they entered. Her movements were fluid, predatory, like a large cat sizing up potential meals. Ambassador Merrick, Dr. Voss. General Kra's voice resonated with harmonics that Elena's translator struggled to capture fully. Welcome. I trust your species finds our accommodations adequate. More than adequate, General, Ambassador Merrick replied diplomatically. We're honored to participate in this historic gathering. General Kra's large eyes focused on Elena with uncomfortable intensity. Dr. Voss, your reputation as a scholar of our cultural practices precedes you. Tell me, what is your understanding of the Great Hunt? Elena felt her throat constrict slightly. The Great Hunt was the Rokar's most sacred tradition, a ritualized hunting expedition where the greatest hunters pursued the most challenging prey across dangerous worlds. It was both a test of skill and a demonstration of dominance often undertaken when a hunter's reputation needed reinforcement, or when political statements required the most visceral form of expression. The Great Hunt represents the pinnacle of Rokar's spiritual and political expression, Elena replied carefully. It's not merely about the taking of life, but about the demonstration of superiority, the testing of one's skills against worthy adversaries, and the reinforcement of the social hierarchy that governs your society. A sound emanated from General Krah that Elena's translator interpreted as approval. Accurate. And what constitutes worthy prey in your estimation? Elena's academic mind raced. Based on my studies, worthy prey must demonstrate intelligence, resourcefulness, and the ability to pose a genuine challenge to the hunter. It's not about physical strength alone, but about the complete package of survival instincts, creativity, and will to live. The general's expression shifted, and Elena caught a subtle change in the pheromone trackers she'd attached to her clothing. The Rokar was pleased, but there was something else, something that made Elena's instincts scream danger. You understand us well, Doctor. Perhaps too well. General Krah gestured to someone outside Elena's view. My finest hunter Crag has expressed particular interest in your species. He finds the concept of vulnerable prey that thinks itself above the food chain to be intriguing. Elena felt the blood drain from her face as a figure stepped into the light. Crag was massive even by Rokar standards, standing nearly 8 feet tall. His bone armor was more elaborate than the others, carved with intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories of successful hunts. His eyes held an intelligence that was somehow more terrifying than raw predatory instinct. Dr. Voss, Krog's voice was deeper than General Krah's, resonating in frequencies that made Elena's bones ache. I have studied your species extensively. You are curiosity's prey that has developed tools to hunt minds that can understand predators, yet bodies that remain fundamentally weak. It presents a unique challenge. I'm not sure I understand the relevance of this discussion to our diplomatic mission. Ambassador Murik interjected, his voice strained. General Krah's laugh was like the breaking of bones. Oh, but you do understand, Ambassador. The Rokar way of measuring species is not through words or treaties, but through action, through hunt. Elena felt her world tilting. You're suggesting that... I am not suggesting anything, Doctor. I am informing you. Craig stepped closer, and Elena could smell the alien musk of his skin like ozone and copper. You have been selected for the Great Hunt. You will be transported to Xiphos 3, a death world of our choosing, where you will have the opportunity to prove that humanity deserves its place among thinking species. If you survive for 10 solar cycles and reach the extraction point, humanity's status in the Alliance will be reconsidered. This is outrageous. Ambassador Merrick stood his chair, scraping against the floor. Dr. Voss is a civilian, a scientist. She's not. She is prey. Krog's voice cut through the protest like a blade. And I am the hunter. This has been decided by the Council of Khans. Dr. Voss has 1 hour to prepare. Elena's mind reeled. Everything she'd studied about the Rokar had led to this moment. But intellectual understanding was vastly different from facing the reality of being selected as quarry. Yet beneath the terror, her analytical mind was already working, cataloging what she knew about Rokar hunting traditions. Can I at least take basic survival equipment? She asked, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. Krog's expression might have been approval. Standard hunting protocol allows for basic tools, a survival kit, a communications device, 1 weapon of your choice, and any knowledge you carry in your mind. Nothing more. Elena, we can appeal this to the Alliance Council, Ambassador Merrick said desperately. No. Elena replied, her xenoanthropologist instincts overriding her fear. This is how their society functions. To appeal would be to demonstrate exactly the cowardice they expect from us. It would cement humanity's position as prey species forever. General Krah's eyes gleamed. The human understands. Perhaps she will provide better sport than anticipated. Elena spent her hour in preparation with methodical precision. She selected a sonic pulse weapon non-lethal, but capable of stunning most predators. Her survival kit included standard items, water purification tablets, emergency rations, a thermal blanket, basic medical supplies, and a plasma cutter that could serve multiple purposes. Most importantly, she loaded her personal tablet with every piece of information about Xiphos 3 she could access in the time available. Xiphos 3 was classified as a death world, a planet where the environment itself was hostile to most forms of life. The data showed a world of vast fungal forests, toxic rain, volcanic activity, and indigenous predators that had evolved in one of the galaxy's most challenging ecosystems. It wasn't just about surviving Crag. She would have to survive the planet itself. As she packed, Elena forced herself to think like the xenoanthropologist she was. The Rokar weren't just hunters. They were honor-bound hunters. Their cultural protocols would govern Crag's behavior as much as hers. There would be rules, traditions, perhaps even exploitable elements in their hunting code. The transport ship was a converted Rokar hunting vessel, all angular edges and predatory aesthetics. Elena sat in restraints across from Krog, who spent the journey sharpening what appeared to be ceremonial bone blades. His eyes never left her, studying her reactions, her body language, her breathing patterns. "You are afraid," he observed as they approached Xiphos 3. "Good. Fear keeps prey alive longer, but you are also thinking. I can see it in the way you watch me, how you calculate. This too is good. Mindless prey provides no satisfaction." Elena met his gaze directly. "In my studies of Rokar culture, I learned that the greatest hunters value the hunt itself more than the kill. What happens if I provide you with a hunt so satisfying that killing me would actually diminish the experience?" Krog's laugh was like grinding stone. "Now you think like prey trying to bargain for life. I have heard such words before. Your species' greatest flaw is the belief that words can replace action. You will have 10 cycles to prove your worth through deed, not speech." The ship's screens showed Xiphos 3 growing larger, a mottled brown and green world shrouded in toxic clouds. Elena could see the volcanic chains across the continents, the vast fungal forests that appeared black from space, and the storm systems that raged constantly in the upper atmosphere. "One final piece of advice," Dr. Craig said as the ship entered the atmosphere. "On Xiphos 3, everything hunts everything. I am not your only predator." They landed in a clearing surrounded by towering fungal trees that twisted toward the purple-tinted sky like arthritic fingers. The air was thick and humid, with an acrid smell that burned Elena's nostrils, even through her environmental suit's filters. Krog disembarked first, moving with the fluid grace of a born predator, and Elena followed on unsteady legs. "Your 10 cycles begin now," Krog announced, activating a device on his armor that projected a holographic countdown. "I will give you a hunter's grace period, 1 full cycle to establish your position, find shelter, prepare. After that, I hunt." Elena looked around at the alien landscape. Bioluminescent fungi dotted the forest floor, like fallen stars, and she could hear the sounds of unknown creatures in the distance, chirps, roars, and clicking sounds that spoke of a complex ecosystem. Above the canopy filtered the weak light of Xiphos 3's red dwarf star into an otherworldly twilight. "Why a grace period?" she asked. "Doesn't that diminish the hunt?" Krog's answer surprised her. "A cornered animal with no hope fights desperately but briefly. One with hope, with a chance however slim, fights creatively. Creatively fighting prey provides the best hunt. The grace period ensures you will not simply wait for death but will struggle to live. This struggle honors both hunter and hunted." With that, he activated some kind of cloaking device and vanished into the forest, though Elena caught glimpses of movement in her peripheral vision. He was watching, she realized, documenting her first decisions, her immediate survival strategies. Elena forced herself to move methodically. First priority was shelter and safety. She activated her tablet and pulled up the geographical data she'd downloaded. According to the scans, there was a series of caves approximately 2 kilometers north, formed by ancient lava flows. Caves would provide protection from the toxic rain that fell sporadically and shelter from the larger predators. As she hiked, Elena kept mental notes of everything she observed. The fungal trees seemed to be part of a vast interconnected network. She could see bioluminescent pulses traveling along root systems that suggest communication. The air was thick with spores that her environmental suit filtered out, but she noticed that many of the small creatures seemed to thrive on them. The first challenge came in the form of a pack of 6-legged creatures that resembled a cross between wolves and mantises. They emerged from the undergrowth with clicking mandibles and compound eyes that reflected the strange light of the forest. Elena's academic mind cataloged them as probable pack hunters, with social coordination, dangerous but possibly predictable. Rather than flee immediately, Elena observed their behavior. They were moving to surround her, but their movements showed clear hierarchy and role delegation. The pack leader was obviously larger, with more elaborate coloring. When it signaled, the others responded. Elena activated her sonic pulse weapon and fired directly at the pack leader. The creature staggered its clicking, turning to a higher-pitched whine, and the others immediately retreated to form a protective circle around their leader. This was valuable information. These creatures had complex social bonds that could be exploited. She backed away slowly, keeping the sonic weapon trained on the pack leader until they disappeared into the fungal growth. Her heart was pounding, but she felt a spark of professional satisfaction. First encounters survived through observation and tactical thinking, rather than pure force or flight. The caves, she found, were perfect, a network of interconnected chambers formed by ancient volcanic activity. Elena explored carefully, checking for signs of habitation by other creatures. She found evidence of past use, scratch marks on walls, old nesting material, but nothing recent. In the largest chamber, Elena established her base camp. She set up her thermal blanket as both sleeping surface and heat retention barrier, organized her supplies for easy access, and used her plasma cutter to mark strategic points in the walls where she could attach defensive items. As the first cycle ended, and Xiphus 3's weak star set, Elena reviewed what she'd learned. The planet operated on a 20-hour day cycle. The toxic rain seemed to fall on a regular pattern, approximately every 6 hours. The forest was active during both day and night, but different creatures dominated different periods. Most importantly, she'd seen signs that Krag was indeed watching. Disturbed vegetation where no creature should have passed, minute changes in the environment that spoke of advanced camouflage moving through the area. He was studying her as much as she was studying the environment. On the second cycle, Elena woke to the sound of something large moving outside her cave. Peering carefully from the entrance, she saw a creature that defied easy classification, bipedal, but covered in chitinous plates, approximately 12 feet tall, with multiple arms ending in sharp claws. It was feeding on the fungal trees, but its head turned, constantly scanning for threats. Elena withdrew deeper into the cave and activated her tablet, cross-referencing the creature against the xenobiology database she'd brought. Nothing matched exactly, but the closest analogs suggested a herbivore. Despite the claws were likely defensive adaptations rather than hunting tools. This gave her an idea. Throughout the day, Elena worked on what she privately termed her first psychological barrier. Using her plasma cutter, she began carving symbols into the cave walls, not random marks, but carefully constructed representations of Rokar hunting glyphs that she'd studied in her research. Specifically, she carved the glyph for "worthy prey acknowledges the hunter," followed by "trial of respect requested." Elena knew that Krag would see these marks when he eventually entered her shelter, and they would communicate something important. She understood his culture well enough to invoke formal protocols that governed the hunter-prey relationship. The third cycle brought the first direct confrontation with Xiphus 3's larger predators. Elena was foraging for edible fungi. Her survival rations would last only a few cycles, and she needed to supplement them when she encountered what could only be described as a land squid. 8 tentacles each, thick as a human torso, gripping the ground and trees as it moved. Its beak was large enough to snap a human in half, and its skin pulsed with warning colors. Elena's first instinct was to run, but she forced herself to think. The creature's coloration wasn't random, it was communication. Warning colors, yes, but also territorial markings. This was its feeding ground, and she was trespassing. Instead of fleeing, Elena slowly removed one of her emergency rations and placed it on the ground, backing away carefully. The creature approached the offering tentatively, tested it with smaller tentacles, then consumed it. The warning colors faded slightly. Elena repeated this process twice more, establishing a pattern of ritual feeding. The creature came to associate her not with threat or prey, but with food provision. When she finally backed away and left the area, the creature didn't pursue. This was her second psychological barrier for Craig, demonstrating that survival didn't require dominance or destruction, but understanding and adaptation. Days 4 and 5 tested Elena's physical endurance. The toxic rains were becoming more frequent, and her environmental suit's filters were showing signs of wear. She jerry-rigged a collection system using her thermal blanket and empty containers, creating a way to collect and purify water that didn't depend entirely on her equipment. But the real test came on the 6th day, when Craig finally made his presence known. Elena woke to find him sitting in her cave perfectly still, watching her sleep. Her heart hammered, but she forced herself to sit up slowly, showing no sudden movements. "You have survived longer than most prey," he commented, his voice echoing strangely in the cave chamber. "And I see you understand more than expected." He gestured to the hunting glyphs she'd carved. "These show knowledge, but knowledge is not survival." "I've survived because I've thought like prey that understands predators," Elena replied. "I've learned the rules of this world and found ways to work within them, rather than against them." Krog stood, and Elena realized he could kill her effortlessly. His bone armor seemed to have adapted to the cave environment, changing color to match the rock. "Show me," he commanded. Elena led him out of the cave and toward her feeding ground arrangement with the land squid. The creature was there, and when it saw Elena, its tentacles made the same ritualistic pattern she'd established. She placed another ration on the ground, and the creature accepted it peacefully. "You made peace with an apex predator of this world," Krog observed, and there was something in his voice Elena couldn't quite identify. Surprise, respect. "I established communication and mutual benefit," Elena corrected. "The same principles that govern successful coexistence between any species." Krog circled the clearing, slowly studying the scene. "You think that what works with a mindless beast will work with me?" "No," Elena answered honestly. "You're not mindless. You're intelligent, cultural, bound by traditions and honor codes that I've spent years studying. You're far more complex than that creature, which means our interaction must be far more sophisticated." Something changed in Krog's posture. "Continue your survival, Doctor. We will speak again." He disappeared again, but Elena noticed that her cave showed signs of his visit, even after he left. Small items had been moved, rearranged. He was studying her habits, her priorities, her psychology. The hunt was entering a new phase. On the 7th cycle, Elena made her most daring gambit. Using her plasma cutter, she began constructing what she privately called her intellectual trap. She carved detailed mathematical proofs into the cave walls, equations relating to quantum mechanics, xenobiology, classification systems, and most importantly, a complete structural analysis of Rokar armor design. The armor analysis was the key. Elena had observed that Rokar bone armor wasn't just protective. It was a complex system of environmental adaptation, communication device, and status symbol. Her analysis showed calculations for improving thermal regulation, weight distribution, and articulation efficiency. When Crag appeared again on the 8th cycle, he spent considerable time studying the walls. Elena watched his body language carefully, noting the minute changes that indicated interest, evaluation consideration. "You understand our armor," he said finally. "I understand the engineering principles behind it," Elena replied. "Your people developed a technology that works with biology rather than replacing it. It's elegant and efficient in ways that human technology rarely achieves." Krog removed one piece of his armor, a vambrace covering his forearm, and handed it to Elena. The bone felt warm, almost alive, and she could see the intricate network of channels that ran through it. "Improvements to old designs are always valuable," he said cryptically, then left again. This was Elena's third psychological barrier, demonstrating that humans could contribute to Rokar society, that prey species might possess knowledge valuable to predators. The 9th cycle brought crisis. Elena's environmental suit finally failed completely, leaving her exposed to Xiphos 3's toxic atmosphere. Within hours, she was fighting severe respiratory distress, her skin burning where the acidic air touched it. She retreated deep into her cave and began working frantically with her medical supplies. Using the thermal blanket as a makeshift cleanroom, she created an improvised rebreather system, using the water purification tablets, some plastic tubing from her emergency kit, and the electronic components from her now broken tablet. It was crude, but it worked well enough to keep her alive. The bigger problem was that her time was running out. One more cycle, and if she hadn't reached the extraction point, which she still didn't know the location of the hunt, would be considered complete. On the 10th and final cycle, Elena made the most important decision of her life. Instead of trying to find the extraction point, she sought out Krog. She found him at the top of a crystalline formation that jutted from the forest like a frozen waterfall. He was sitting in meditation, completely motionless. Elena climbed the treacherous surface, her improvised breathing apparatus working hard in the thin air. "Your cycles are complete, Doctor," Krog said without opening his eyes. "You have 27 intervals by my measurement until the hunt ends." "I know," Elena replied, sitting down across from him in the same meditative position. "I'm not here to run anymore." Krog's eyes opened, fixing on her with laser intensity. "Then, you wish to die with dignity. Many prey make this choice at the end." "No," Elena said firmly. "I want to propose a new type of hunt." The great hunter's head tilted slightly. "Explain." Elena gestured to the strange crystalline formation beneath them. "This entire structure is made of minerals from volcanic gas and fungal spores. I can use the basic chemistry equipment in my survival kit to create a highly exothermic reaction, essentially turn this entire formation into a bomb." Krog's stance shifted to full alertness. "You threaten me." "I'm offering you a choice," Elena said calmly. "You can kill me now, completing a hunt that's been moderately entertaining. Or you can accept my proposal instead of predator hunting prey. We become temporary allies, hunting the apex predator of Xiphos 3 together." "The Void Prowler," Krag said slowly. "You know of it?" Elena nodded. "I've seen the signs, the territories that even the land squids avoid the claw marks on trees too high. For any creature I've encountered the way, all other predators disappear during certain wind patterns. There's something on this planet that even you consider dangerous." "The Void Prowler is legendary among my people. Hunters have died attempting to claim it. It is considered impossible prey." "Exactly," Elena smiled. "Which means successfully hunting it would be a greater achievement than hunting me. I offer you my mind, my knowledge of this ecosystem, my understanding of predator behavior in exchange for partnership in the greatest hunt your species recognizes." Krog stood towering over her. For a moment, Elena was certain he would simply snap her neck. Instead, he threw back his head and made a sound she'd never heard before, a Rokar laugh of genuine delight. "You seek to turn the hunted into the hunter. You propose that prey and predator become packmates." He circled her slowly. "This violates every tradition of the Great Hunt." "Or it transcends them," Elena replied. Your people believe that worthy prey enhances the hunter. What if prey worthy enough could become hunter? The next several hours passed in intense discussion. Crag explained that the Void Prowler was a creature of near mythical status, even among the Rokar. It was said to be part of the planet itself, a predator that had achieved perfect adaptation to Xiphos 3's Death World environment. Most importantly, it was intelligent, not animal cunning, but genuine intelligence that allowed it to learn from every encounter. Elena shared her observations about the planet's ecosystem, the interconnected fungal networks, the behavioral patterns of various species. She proposed a hunting strategy based on systemic understanding rather than raw predatory skill. The Void Prowler dominates through perfect environmental integration, she argued. It's not separate from Xiphos 3, it's part of the planet's predatory system. To hunt it successfully, we need to disrupt that integration, make it fight on terms it's not adapted to. Krog listened with the intensity Elena had seen him reserve for studying her survival techniques. You propose to reshape the battlefield itself. Exactly. Use the crystalline formations, the fungal networks, the volcanic activity. Force it to fight in an environment we create, rather than the one it controls. As they talked, Elena realized something profound was happening. The dynamic between them was shifting. Crag no longer looked at her as prey. The body language, the tone of voice, the way he shared information about Rokar hunting techniques, he was treating her as an equal predator. When Xiphos 3's weak star reached its zenith, Crag made his decision. I accept your proposal, Dr. Elena Voss. But understand, if we attempt this hunt and fail, you die not as prey, but as a failed hunter. This is a distinction with significance in my culture. I understand, Elena replied. I accept those terms. The hunt for the Void Prowler took 3 cycles to plan and execute. Elena and Crag worked together to create a series of environmental traps using the planet's own systems. They redirected fungal spore concentrations to create confusion fields, set up harmonic resonators, using the crystalline formations to disrupt the Void Prowler's sensory systems, and prepared contingencies using controlled volcanic venting. When they finally encountered the Void Prowler, Elena understood why it was legendary. The creature defied easy description. It seemed to shift between states, sometimes appearing as a shadow, moving through solid matter, sometimes taking on aspects of the environment itself. It was hunting them, even as they hunted it, using the planet's systems against them with perfect efficiency. The final confrontation took place in a volcanic caldera, where Elena and Crag had laid their most complex trap. The Void Prowler had pursued them through their carefully prepared route, adapting to each obstacle, learning from each encounter. At the climactic moment when the Void Prowler seemed certain to overwhelm them both, Elena activated the crystalline formation she'd prepared on the first day, turning it into a massive thermal disruption that flash froze a section of the volcanic rock, creating an entirely new terrain feature. The Void Prowler, perfectly adapted to the known environment, was suddenly fighting in an alien landscape. In that moment of disorientation, Crag struck with precision that spoke of generations of hunting evolution. The creature fell, and with it, something fundamental changed in the relationship between Elena and Crag. You are prey no longer, Crag declared, as they stood over the body of the Void Prowler. You have demonstrated the heart of a predator, the mind of a hunter, the soul of Rokar. But I'm still human, Elena pointed out. Yes, Krog replied. And that is what makes this significant. Humanity has proven worthy, not just of protection, but of respect, of partnership. The extraction ship arrived precisely on time. Elena suspected Crag had been in communication with his people throughout the hunt. But instead of simply collecting Elena for return to Regulus 7th, the ship's manifest included an honor guard for both hunter and prey, who had become partners. The return journey to Regulus 7 was unlike anything Elena had experienced. Crag insisted that she travel in the hunter section of the ship, not as a captive, but as an honored guest. Other Rokar warriors who had heard of the successful Void Prowler hunt treated her with a respect that bordered on reverence. "What happens now?" Elena asked as they approached the space station. "Now," Craig replied, "the Galactic Alliance learns that classification as prey or predator is not fixed. Your species has proven that intelligence and understanding can transcend biological limitation. The hunt protocols will be reconsidered." When they docked at Regulus 7th, Elena walked off the ship not as a survivor of a hunting trial, but as a dignitary under the protection of one of the Rokar's most legendary hunters. Ambassador Merrick's expression of shock was worth cataloging for future xenoanthropological study. The subsequent diplomatic negotiations were revolutionary. Humanity's status in the Galactic Alliance was elevated from protected prey species to intellectual predator species, a new classification created specifically to recognize that predatory capability wasn't solely determined by physical characteristics. General Krah, when presented with Krog's full report, made a statement that became legendary in both human and Rokar diplomatic history. "Perhaps we have been too narrow in our understanding of what makes an apex predator. The greatest hunters are not those who make the most kills, but those who adapt, understand, and transcend the limitations of their nature." In the months that followed, Elena became the first human to formally study with Rokar hunters, developing new theories about interspecies cooperation and cultural evolution. Her work laid the foundation for a new era of galactic diplomacy, one where species weren't simply classified as predator or prey, but recognized for their unique contributions to the complex ecosystem of galactic civilization. Craig, for his part, became an advocate for expanded hunting protocols that included intellectual and cooperative challenges. The great hunt traditions evolved to include partnership trials, where the greatest honor came not from dominating prey, but from elevating worthy opponents to equal status. Years later, when Elena published her definitive work on Rokar culture and the evolution of galactic diplomatic protocols, she included a dedication to Krog, who taught me that the greatest hunters are those who recognize when prey has the potential to become predator, and who choose partnership over domination. The story became legend throughout the galaxy, the tale of a prey species that thought its way into predator status, and a hunter who discovered that the greatest hunts sometimes end, not with death, but with transformation. Elena's survival on Xiphos 3 marked the beginning of a new age in galactic politics, one where intelligence, adaptability, and understanding were recognized as the ultimate apex predator traits. And on quiet stations throughout the galaxy, when young Rokar hunters gathered to share tales of great hunts, they told the story of the human who claimed herself as hunter and the legendary Crag who recognized her worth. It became a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating prey, and an inspiring one about the power of transcending the roles that others assign to you. The relationship between humanity and the Rokar continued to evolve, setting precedents for how other species in the galaxy interacted. Elena's model of cultural anthropology, combined with practical survival skills, became the standard for diplomatic missions to predator species, and her partnership with Krog inspired a new generation of interspecies cooperation. But perhaps most importantly, her story proved that in a galaxy where species were divided into hunters and hunted the most dangerous predators, weren't necessarily those with the sharpest claws or strongest jaws. They were those with minds sharp enough to rewrite the rules of the hunt itself.